Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. As part of our ongoing commitment to support our members with practical, relevant, and high-value capability development, we're pleased to host today's workshop on performance management. We're very happy to welcome Cher Peterson, Director of INTEG Assess. Cher's background is in industrial psychology, which she studied through Unisa, and for the past 13 years, she and her team have been providing HR and business support to organizations with a strong focus on systems that genuinely enable people to perform and grow. INTEG Assess works exclusively with world-class global best practice assessment tools, and importantly, all assessments are fully registered with the Health Professional Council of South Africa. This ensures that tools are valid, ethical, and credible, which is particularly important in a space where where many unregulated assessments are circling. Cher will guide us today through a practical and human-centered approach to performance management, how to make it work and how to make it meaningful. Before I hand over to Cher, just some housekeeping. Could all the participants please put their name and company details in the chat? Because Cher does have an offer for people who, or for participants on this workshop, which she will explain at the end of her workshop. And if there are any questions, we would prefer to take questions at the end, time permitting, and please put those questions in the chat. With that, thank you for being here today, Cher, and I'm handing over to you.
Thank you, Sharon, and thank you to the ACA and to you as members. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you some insights that we have gained over the last few years in the space of performance management. And so, yes, thank you for being here, and just for being here and being an ACA member. There is an offer at the end, so please stay till the end. If you have to go, you can chat to Sharon about that, but let's dive in. So our topic today is about driving business results through performance management. And we're going to be unpacking how transforming advertising and communications firms through strategic performance management excellence is becoming an important topic in the industry. And please, we're going to have some questions at the end, but not it depends on time, but I am happy to entertain questions afterwards as well, and that's where the free offer will come in. The truth is that many companies think that performance management is a punitive or a micromanagement tool. And unfortunately, performance management has gotten a bad name from that perspective. I know many, especially smaller agents, think of performance management only in the first 3 months to see whether somebody is a fit for your organization and hopefully how you can get rid of them. But the reality is that performance management has huge potential to make a difference. And we'll unpack that even on your bottom line. It can make a difference to the culture in your organization and how people operate. And it's about unlocking potential. It's about fueling creativity. It's about aligning purpose, and that will increase accountability, as well as driving results. Because let's be honest, business needs to drive those results. It really is about the bottom line in our current economy. And this is where many organizations get performance management wrong. They either are using it infrequently or not comprehensively enough to make a real difference in the organization. So why does performance management matter? Agencies succeed or fail on the performance of their people. Creative output, client satisfaction, profitability, and employee retention make a difference to your business. Client satisfaction, for example, things like your net promoter score, etc., and we'll dig into that a bit later, are vitally important to understand whether you are on track in maintaining those relationships. And then, besides profitability, employee retention is also a large impactor, not only on your bottom line, but also on your productivity levels. When you constantly have to replace people, it has an impact on your deliverables. So when it comes to the key outcomes of performance management, there are 4 specific outcomes that we have to take note of. One is alignment. And the purpose of performance management is to align individuals with the organizational goals. Now, that may seem like an obvious statement, but if I have to tell you how many organizations we've dealt with that have not tied their companies' goals, KPAs, or OKRs with the teams and the individuals, it is quite frightening to see how that strategic link is broken. Because people have historically looked at performance management as just an HR tick box exercise or a way of getting rid of poor performers. Whereas the actual value of performance management, when it's done correctly, is that you have clear organizational goals, and then teams and individuals have clear goals, and that those goals are aligned. The next thing is retention. In order to retain high-performing creatives and other employees in your organization, you need to recognize their contribution. And that's what performance management actually does. It helps individuals know that they're on track. Imagine writing or doing, sorry, I think there's Senzimikize, could you please mute? Thank you. So the retention part is vital from a turnover perspective because it affects productivity, as well as from the bottom line. The cost to rehire a person is expensive, and starting from scratch, the training and development, etc., does impact the performance of teams. The 4th key outcome is accountability. If you want to build a culture of accountability without killing creativity, you need to ensure that you have a system that's robust. And then the last is growth. To identify development gaps early and invest strategically in your employees and your teams is vitally important. And that's what the outcomes of performance management do for you. We have a saying, what gets measured gets improved. And then, but what gets understood gets transformed. When you have a clear understanding of what the performance gaps in your organization are and what needs to be accomplished, you can transform things. I've heard it said many times in organizations, oh, nothing here ever changes. It's the same old, same old. But the reality is that when we have data that informs us and it's objective and effective, we can take the steps to change things. And transformation speaks to agility, which is vitally important in this disruptive environment of business, especially in South Africa. Now, the interesting thing is that most people think that performance management starts when somebody joins your organization. We believe that strategic recruitment is where it actually begins. That recruitment is the first step in performance management. For that reason, we have a suite of psychometric tests that are used to assess individuals to find out whether they're going to be a culture fit, whether they're going to be a culture add to the organization or a team, what values these individuals have, what their work ethic is like, their integrity, and you get to know this upfront, objectively, through these assessments so that you can prevent performance problems later. A winning approach is to hire for potential, measure for growth, and develop for excellence. And when we view performance management as a strategic rather than an operational tool, it stops being punitive and it becomes predictive and more productive. So the science of pre-hire assessments, interestingly, leading firms are transforming their hiring processes by adopting comprehensive assessments strategies that extend beyond the traditional interviews. And some of the stats here, and I'm not going to go through the whole slide, is that they've noticed an improved accuracy on the people that they hire by 67%. Just through having pre-hire assessments. Now, obviously, you get your competency assessments, and it may be a portfolio of evidence in your case. It varies from agency to agency. But then there are the assessments that you do not have the expertise, which is important to recognize. And this is into the human psyche. So by using these types of assessments, companies are experiencing that improved accuracy in hiring. They're also showing a 3.5% revenue growth. And I know that sounds high, but for many smaller companies, particularly, this has made a massive difference. And then also the employee turnover reduction has reduced by 2.3 times. Fascinatingly enough, about 8 years ago, we were approached by a company in the financial services industry where in a group of 100 or so employees, they had to dismiss 12% of their employees due to fraudulent behavior and gross dishonesty. After implementing just our integrity assessment, not only on the existing team, but on all their recruits after that, for the last 7 to 8 years, they've had absolutely clean bill of health, no fraudulent or untoward behavior that has business impact for them. And so it's very important to appreciate that these assessments are scientifically based. They are not just something you download for free off the internet, and yet they are the greatest investment. Most of our clients will not recruit without at least one or two of the assessments in the battery that we offer to get a clearer understanding of what they are hiring before they hire so that they can mitigate for risk. Fascinatingly, Simon Sinek shares a little bit of information regarding an interview he had with the Navy SEAL Team 6. Now, these are arguably the most high-performing people on the planet. And what they recognized is that there is an axis, and we'll get to that, of performance versus trustworthiness. And the interesting thing is that most of us would want somebody in this range, high performance. But what they have discovered is that individuals who are high performance but low trust actually become toxic leaders. And what they prefer is rather somebody who is a lower performer but a high trust individual. Now, the truth is everybody assesses for performance. Every industry has metrics for performance management to determine whether somebody is a high performer, but very few, if any, are actually assessing for trustworthiness. This is where our integrity assessment comes in. We help organizations to determine, can we trust this person before we hire them? So this is the assessment, just a sample report, and I'll happily share some of the insights with anyone who wants to know. But this assessment is a phenomenal tool. It's a dedicated integrity assessment, and it assesses basically 10 substructures of integrity. Socialization, what is the person's background? Trustworthiness, things like reliability, dependability, etc. Credibility, is the person consistent? Are they legitimate? Are they accountable? Then, very importantly, work ethic. You want to know that somebody has a persevering, committed drive initiative, that they're self-directed, self-reliant, that they're cooperative, that they've got a strong sense of duty, and that they take pride in themselves, in their work, and in the organization. We also look at their attitudes and their functional and dysfunctional behavior, whether they abuse or use their power, whether they're manipulative or not, and then what do they perceive about their current employer? Is there transformation commitment, and what do they think about managerial integrity? Now, these tools allow you to understand the person before you interview them. And interestingly enough, both the integrity assessment and our personality assessment actually have a built-in lie detector. So you'll notice here at the bottom, it's got the monitor scores, and it differentiates between the different types of dishonesty. The one is blatant lying. Another one is being inconsistent. And then there's what we call unnatural exaggeration. We all inflate and exaggerate when we go for an interview. That is human nature, but unnatural exaggeration is where it becomes dangerous. And so this is one of the tools that we recommend to our clients in being more strategic to plan for performance in the future. Another one is just the personality at work. And no, we don't have a different personality at home to work. But the interesting thing is this assessment focuses on what's relevant in the world of work. It looks at how the individual perceives work, what their attitude is towards work, time, effective performance, role orientation, etc. And then their perception of themselves, then how they think, whether they're flexible and adaptable, practical or theoretical, and how good they are at decision making. And then how do they relate to others? What's their people orientation? If they want to be in sales, for example, they need to be strong in influencing others. And then obviously, last but not least, what we often call EQ or emotional intelligence, which is, I'm told by some of the interviews I've done amongst your industry, is that EQ and AI adoption attitude are probably two of the greatest factors that make a difference on the ground for teams. And so these two elements come through very clearly, firstly, in a person's interview when you ask them about AI adoption and how they perceive AI and whether there's resistance, as well as through this tool where you're going to get a good understanding of what the person's emotional intelligence levels actually are. And so you get sub-reports from this one, like an entrepreneurial orientation, your sales and marketing orientation, a financial orientation, if you're employing for that kind of role, or a managerial orientation, and last, a motivational disposition. What actually motivates this individual? So you can see that by getting these insights before you onboard somebody, you have a very clear idea of who you are working with and what you can expect for the future. So if somebody has a very low drive, they're not very persevering, you can mitigate for that. You can train, you can include it in their development program so that you can set this person up for success. Because what if they've got all the competencies and they've got fantastic integrity, but their personality traits naturally need to be developed so that they can fulfill the role more effectively. So as Sharon shared, we use only registered assessments simply because it gives reliable, scientifically valid, and objective data. When it comes to using any type of assessment, these are the criteria that you have to consider. It has to be valid. It must measure what it claims to measure. And you've got to ask, does it assess the right constraints? Then the reliability is that it has to produce consistent results. So if a person does an assessment today and they do an assessment in 2 years' time, those results must be quite consistent. Now, there are many assessments out there that are highly debated. One that I love for interest's sake is called the Myers-Briggs type indicator. But because it doesn't produce the same level of consistency that other assessments do, people are a little bit wary of using it for recruitment purposes. And so you need to ask, are the results stable over time when you're assessing any assessment that you're going to use pre-recruitment or in the recruitment phase or before onboarding? Then you've got your standardization. It's got to be administered and scored uniformly. So what is conducted the same way was it conducted the same way for all the assessments? And then there's the norms. Norms give us meaningful comparisons, and the question here is, how does the score compare to others? A lot of companies who have historically used these assessments have now started benchmarking great performers who may have either left their company or are still with the company to ensure that they employ new employees that fit those and meet those benchmarks. And then lastly, fairness and objectivity. It's got to be free from cultural or other biases. Now, in South Africa, where we have multiple languages and very diverse cultures, this is really important. And so you have to ask, is it fair to all test takers? One of the joys about our assessments, the cognitive assessment, is just pictures. All of the assessments are for people with an English level of matric and up. But it's the Health Professions Council of South Africa that ensures that all of these criteria are met. And that's why using tools that are registered with the HPCSA are your safest bet. Historically, up until a few months ago, it was illegal to use for the purpose of recruitment or a bonus where we say there's a value attached to an assessment. You couldn't use an assessment that was not registered with him. Now they've dropped their standards a bit, unfortunately, like much in South Africa, but you now still have to be classified. And it's not as stringent, but it's still a really good safety measure. So the foundation of getting hiring right is obviously your behavioral assessments, and that's where we're looking at creative problem solving on the cognitive assessment, client relationship attitude that will come out in your personality and your integrity, as well as in the team collaboration skills. And then you've got your skills-based evaluation, your portfolio assessment frameworks, your campaign development scenarios, and your digital proficiency testing, which is more of an internal type of evaluation that an organization would do. Research shows that structured pre-hire assessments reduce turnover by 40% and improve first-year performance by 35%. And that's a substantial figure. The performance challenge, specifically in this industry, is that the advertising and communications sector faces unprecedented talent challenges. There's high turnover, shifting client demands, and competitive pressure for top performers and this creates a perfect storm. 20 to 30% turnover rate is what's currently been marked as the average annual turnover in South African advertising agencies. If you are lower than that, fantastic. But some agencies are experiencing higher turnover. The cost per hire stats tell us that it ranges from a 25,000 to a 60,000 average for recruitment costs, specifically on senior roles. And then when it comes to time to full productivity for new hires, your average is about 6 months. So you need to understand, especially if you're looking at only doing performance management while the person is onboarding for that 3 months probation period, that you actually only going to see your real return after 6 months. Some people can show real performance before that and in less time, but it does require your cooperation as an organization with that person, truly setting them up for success. So today I'm going to focus on what's called the balanced scorecard type of performance management. There are approximately 10 recognized globally performance frameworks. We have developed 2 novel ones of our own, and it's interesting how these can either overlap or can be totally unique. And the balanced scorecard is probably the most commonly used performance framework because it forces alignment with the company goals when it's done correctly. So it can detach and not be aligned, and that's where the danger lies. But by its nature, its development has been from the perspective that the company starts with its own scorecard, with its own goals and its own perspectives. So basically, for those of you who may not be familiar, the perspectives are the four main goals of an organization that a company needs to achieve in order to remain in business. The one is learning and growth. The next is internal processes or operations by another name. Then there's what we call the customer and client focus, and then there's your financial focus. So a framework that helps organizations translate the strategy into measurable performance is this balanced scorecard. Instead of focusing only on the financial results of your organization, it balances these 4 key perspectives. So your learning and growth is about, are your people learning and staying engaged? Because employee engagement impacts performance. Then when it comes to your operational issues, your internal processes, the question is, are our creative and operational processes effective? Systems and processes are critical to turn around and get things done quickly. And if your systems are not effective, this can be a huge hurdle in your organization. And sometimes it doesn't mean full automation. Sometimes it's simple things that we found with customers that can make a real difference. Small actions can make a big impact. Then there's the customer perspective or client perspective, and this is asking the question, are we satisfying our clients? And lastly, but not least, the financial is, are we achieving our financial goals? Why is this relevant to agencies? Well, first, it's about focus. It keeps focus on balances between creativity and profitability. It measures things. It helps measure intangible outcomes, innovation, collaboration, and client satisfaction. And it's data-driven. It enables data-driven performance conversations rather than subjective opinions. Technology is an enabler. And we have found that many organizations have historically had this overwhelmed feeling of not being able to do performance management often enough. Now, if you were trying to lose weight, I think for those of us who may have attended either Weight Watchers or Weigh Less, you will know that monitoring your weight every day is not a healthy thing. It can be very discouraging, and they have come up with an ideal way or time frame for measuring the performance on weight loss as to weigh yourself once a week. If you were only weighing yourself once a month, you would also not be able to track yourself effectively to mitigate for the fact that you are not on track. And so the same applies when it comes to managing performance. You want to ensure that you have maybe a weekly huddle where everybody's just, let's talk. Are you on track? Do you need help? And that's where managers play such a big role. Then also to have a real performance conversation with each employee at least once a quarter. And that performance conversation can be as simple as, let's look at what you're working on now and how that is feeding into the performance contract. So when somebody joins a company, we often find that job descriptions become outdated. And that's why we start with turning a job description into a performance contract where the employee, after their first 2 or 3 months, says, yes, this is what I'm doing, and yes, I agree, this is what I need to be accountable for. Bearing in mind, it's not about micromanagement, it's not about punishment, it's about helping people and enabling them. Now, enablement is about also using technology to enable this process. We offer a full HR system, which is completely modular, and one of the components is performance management. And this module supports any framework. So whether you're using SMART goals, OKRs, or the balanced scorecard, or any of the others, it's fully adaptable, and you can use it for whichever performance management framework you choose. It also allows self-assessment. So the individual begins and they assess themselves. Then the manager also assesses that person. And then they have this performance conversation where they then achieve an agreed score. And that agreed score is what you will determine the person's personal development plans on, as well as any rewards, bonuses, etc. This system is also fully customizable, and for KPIs, as I said, or anything else that you want to use it for. And it gives you data dashboards that highlight the strengths and risks and the growth areas of the person. And so this is not, using technology is not about replacing the conversations with software. It's about making insights visible and actionable. Performance management is a strategy, not a stick. When it's built right and the foundation is right, starting with recruitment, rooted in culture and powered by technology, it becomes a key to engagement, to innovation, and to business results. Performance management isn't about control, it's about clarity, connection, and continuous growth. So the journey is pre-hire assessment, a strategic candidate evaluation using validated assessment tools, the performance framework implementation, and we could chat to you about the various types of performance frameworks you can use, because it varies from organization to organization, and it depends on size and a number of other factors. And then the culture and profit impact, measurable improvements in team engagement and bottom line results. So looking at the balanced scorecard just a little bit deeper, it's this methodology transforms the performance management from subjective evaluations, because it's very difficult for us as humans to evaluate things, especially about ourselves. And people are afraid to evaluate other people. But the balanced scorecard makes this considerably easier because it gives those evaluations a objective perspective, and you have measurable outcomes. For advertising and communications firms, this framework aligns the individual with these four perspectives. And so when we look at the financial perspective a little deeper, we look at things like client revenue growth, profit margin improvement, cost per acquisition, and then project profitability. With the client perspective, or your customer satisfaction and customer retention, you look at your net promoter score, which our system also does, and I'm sure many of you are implementing that already. We look at your client retention rates, your campaign effectiveness, and your response time metrics. Now, bear in mind, this is the balanced scorecard for the company, and this is now translating into goals and objectives for the teams and for individuals. On internal processes, it focuses on project delivery, and this is the operational side, quality assurance scores, innovation metrics, and collaboration ratings. And then on the learning and growth side, it looks at your skills development progress, training completion rates, internal mobility, and employee engagement scores. And so you can see how when you focus as a business on these four perspectives and get it right to translate this into the goals for your organization, you can easily create the balanced scorecard for your employees. What makes it excellent is that it drives financial performance, client satisfaction, learning and growth, and internal processes. You have efficiency metrics, quality standards, and innovation in your operational perspective. You've got client satisfaction, your retention rates are up, and your scores, and you get referrals. And then your learning and growth section is about your skills development and engagement, which all speaks to building capability in your organization. And last but not least, your revenue growth and cost management and profitability. So the strategic opportunity is enhanced talent acquisition. When you pre-hire and you use pre-hire assessments, you identifying high potential candidates who align with your culture and deliver results from day one. Then on the operational excellence side, you've got a balanced scorecard framework or any of the others that creates a clear accountability and drives measurable business outcomes across all the functions. And then last but not least, the soft side of this is cultural transformation. Performance management becomes the foundation for building high-performance teams and sustainable competitive advantages. So when it's done right, companies are seeing 41% rise in engagement. And they also see psychological safety, collaboration, and accountability, and it drives a measurable outcome in alignment. So agencies with strong performance cultures achieve 28% higher client satisfaction and 34% better campaign results. And those are not to be sneezed at. The profit culture connection is that performance management, when it's done right, becomes the backbone of your organizational culture. And teams develop that growth mindset. They're accountable, transparent, they communicate better. And the interesting thing is the high performance agencies report strong performance management cultures. To have an 89% performance management culture is a very, very good target. It's an excellent place to be at. And then to have increase in employee engagement scores The average that has been tracked thus far is about 34% increased engagement, and then a 28% improvement in client retention rates. And so you can see how performance management feeds into every aspect of your business. The bottom line is that when it's done properly, you will see measurable financial returns within 12 to 18 months. The data clearly demonstrates that investing in people performance directly correlates with business performance. Performance can become part of your DNA, and when it does, it shifts from compliance to competitive advantage. Teams become engaged, more creative, and your client relationships strengthen. And so the process is that you do the pre-hire assessment, and critically important is your strategic onboarding. Those first 90 seconds, 90 minutes, 90 hours, and 90 days are critical. King Price Insurance has honed this to an absolute art. You can do your research on that. But making those 90s count for you, ensuring that the person is onboarded effectively. And one of our modules is actually managing on the HR performance, on the HR system, is about managing that onboarding. Not many smaller companies necessarily need a system or an automated system to do that. But if you need help in tweaking that and you're going to do it manually, we'll be happy to assist. And then there's the element of continuous development. You want employees to recognize that your organization is committed to developing employees. And this does not mean that we need to be afraid of developing them out of their roles, but how to develop them within their roles, to collaborate with those people, those monthly check-ins and aligning goals and having a real-time feedback loop so that you can keep conversations relevant and actionable. And then obviously the recognition and retention. Sometimes it's something as simple as somebody in the organization recognizing you. One of our modules on the HR system is actually gamification, where people can simply just give a star to somebody who's done something well. And it is amazing to see how this changes organizational culture. When people recognize each other, it doesn't have to be monetary. As a matter of fact, some of the greatest impacts have not been financial. It's just saying, we notice, we see, we appreciate. And those things can impact both the individual and the team's performance. So it's about inspiring your employees. They are your greatest asset. I don't like the word HR because I don't like humans being viewed as a resource, but we understand that humans are the greatest asset in our organization. And so we use it as human relationships because we believe everything is dependent on relationships between human beings. Yes, AI is encroaching, and this is another aspect that we are including and have already started applying with some of our metrics. But the reality is that our people are our greatest asset, and looking after them makes a difference to our business. And so today, at this high level presentation, the question is, can we go beyond the brief together? Can we unlock potential? And can we maximize our performance management? Can we drive growth with measurable business results and client satisfaction? And can we embrace culture, accountability, agility, continuous improvement? We believe we can, and we'd love to do it with you. And that's where our free offer comes in today. Because you have attended and stayed until the very end, We are going to have a Q&A session, but I'd like to offer everyone on the group today a free consultation. We are happy to give you half an hour, 45 minutes, and if it's not abused, we'll go to an hour. But I know that it can be a real struggle if you haven't implemented or you are not able to identify the gaps in your current processes. Or if you just need enabling through technology and other tools, I'd be happy to address that with you one-on-one. So please feel free. I'm going to leave my contact details on the screen. You're welcome to WhatsApp or give me a call on my cell phone and we can schedule a meeting, or on the landline if you prefer, or just drop me an email and we are happy to collaborate with you and see how we can go beyond where you are currently in your performance journey. So thank you very much for attending. And I think if it's okay, we can open the platform. I'm not sure, Sharon, how we're going to
Yeah, no,
manage
I
questions.
think I think they can put up their hands if there's questions. But what I also wanted to add is that Gillian and I have chatted to Cher about doing job descriptions and scorecards in general as templates for agencies. We will need to have a task team to do this, because what we find is that many agencies don't even have proper job descriptions, never mind proper performance management. And that as the association, it's a project that we would like to do that would enable our members with job descriptions, scorecards. The ACA has just worked with INTEG Assess, and we have created our own balanced scorecards and our own job descriptions. So we are using the INTEG Assess system. Anyway, let me open the floor. If anyone's got any questions, please raise your hand and we'll recognize you.
Thank you, Sharon. Yes. Hello. I see you've raised your hand. Do you want to open your mic?
Yes, it's open. Morning. Thanks very much for the presentation. I just wanted to find out, obviously post-COVID, there's been a lot of change just in the workplace, remote working, a lot of impact on, I would say, mental health, people being a lot more open about it.
Yes.
To what degree are your tools adapting to that, and also taking into account just older and young people within our industry? Because, again, depending on what life stage you're at,
Yes.
just your whole approach to work is a bit different, work ethic and all of that. So to what degree is all of that taken into account with all the tools you've mentioned? Thanks.
All right. Hello. Thank you for that. So I think let's start with the tools. Because there are a variety of tools and there are a variety of factors. We, for example, have a mental healthness assessment, just so that it's more of a survey to help people establish where they're currently at and whether they're higher risk or not. Now, when it comes to performance management, understanding the post-COVID and the hybrid environment, plus the fact that we've got Gen X, Gen Z, and all their different requirements, some of us in my generation, which is the 50 plus, we don't want to be checked in on regularly. But the younger generation wants to know, listen, I don't want to waste time. I need to know that I'm on track. I don't quite have the confidence to know that I'm on track currently. So steer me back or get me right so that none of us are in the dark. And so taking these factors into consideration are critical for different organizations because everyone has a different mix. One agency was just sharing with me last week that their biggest crisis is people's attitude to AI. And they're finding that the people who are willing to embrace it and cooperate are better to have on their team than the people who are in total resistance, obviously. And so you have these dynamics, and a lot of those dynamics are not measured by an assessment yet. Bearing in mind, I think there are more and more assessments coming out that measure those things. But the reality is with our HR system is that we can adapt it to whatever your needs are. If you say, look, we need to assess this in our organization, whether it's cultural diversity or generational diversity or even gender diversity, we can do that and we can implement that for you. Now, if your agency is too small, we can advise on how you can do these things manually as well. So that, and we're happy to give that free advice in the consultation. But these are realities, and issues like mental health particularly are becoming vital. This is where trauma and trauma response is also raising its head. A lot of our clients are now starting to include that as a measurable for how, or in their company, how they help and aid people, not just with ICAS, but with other interventions as well. And so what's great is that you can sit down and analyze what it is that your organization specifically needs. I hope that gave you some broad answers. I don't see another hand. Okay. Hello is happy. Thank you. But as I said, please feel free to drop us a note, give us a call. We'd happily consult and explore these questions deeper. I don't see
any other hands, but what I also wanted to just talk about is we'll be sending a survey about this webinar after the survey on something. You'll get an email from Just Say It, which is also a tool that Cher offers. Cher, do you just want to talk a little bit about Just Say It?
Yeah, so Just Say It is basically a tool where you can just say it. Some companies use it as a whistleblowing tool, but we've got a number of companies who use it as, if you see something, say something, whether it's good, bad, neutral, right through from the light bulbs in the boardroom haven't been working for 3 days or they've been flickering, and then it will channel that to your facilities manager. And the nice thing about this tool is that it allows people to express their emotions, as well as, just like you've got a net promoter score with your clients, and this tool gets used for that as well. You can do this for any of your stakeholders, including your employees. And it gives them an opportunity not only to state a problem, but also to give a solution. And it truly is anonymous. So let me just say, when somebody does any survey from their laptop, it is possible to track it back to the API, but when it's done from a cell phone, it's near impossible. You're not going to get that information from the service providers or anything. So your safest bet for any type of whistleblowing platform is for people to be able to do it from their phone. Now, interestingly, an app doesn't always guarantee that, but if it is purely web-based and it's from their phone, it can actually guarantee anonymity as well. And so when it comes to performance, what this tool does is it helps you address issues before they become performance issues. And it really is a powerful tool to get feedback. I've sat in I mean, one of the training interventions we do, there's a little card and it's got a whole lot of F's on it in the wording. And I sat with an executive team where there was one new member who was under 30. And the CEO counted the F's on the card and he came up with 12. And this young person came up with 13. And he was too scared to even admit it. And it was only when we pushed him and he showed, because we often don't see it, the letter F as in the word of, and because of the structure of the wording, most people don't pick it up, that he was pushed to reveal where he found this extra F. And the CEO said, with superlatives, oh my word, if I missed that, what else am I missing? And so through the Just Say It tool, we give organizations the opportunity to get people, especially newcomers, to really say what they want to say with total anonymity. Or if they want to, it can be both anonymous or eponymous. They can declare who they are and take the credit for their suggestions. But it's about enabling and empowering your people to give input in a non-threatening way.
Thanks, Cher. Okay, for people who want the free consultation, must they reach out directly to you? Or must they come through the ACA? Can they contact you?
I think so. For
great.
ease of use or access, let's just do it that way. It is a standard. I think I've got the names of everyone that's on the group today. And yeah, I don't know if there was anyone who fell off. We'd like to offer that to anyone that attended the session today. I guess even those who haven't, I'm not sure. You might keep me tied up for the next 3 months though. So yeah, let's see how it goes.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who has attended. And we hope that you've actually learned something. And
If
yes,
you
thanks
have.
everyone. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
if you've learned something, please just give a thumbs up. And if you have any recommendations, we'll send out a link. And if there's anything we could do better in future, we would appreciate it. Okay, I'm seeing a few thumbs up, so at least we're vaguely on track. Thank you so much.